Hello, my name is Mike Geig, and in this video we are going to be talking about stateless buttons in Windows programming with C#. Okay, so we've seen a button before. In the video that covered our very first program in Windows programming with C#, we created a form that had a button on it, and so you probably already have a pretty solid idea of what a button is. A button is basically a control on the screen that you click or you press a key onto and it performs some simple action. Okay, there's not a lot of complexity with a button. Now in this video, we're going to talk about stateless buttons, and in the next video, we're going to talk about buttons that have state. So what I mean by stateless, okay, a stateless button is a button you're most familiar with. It is a button that does not know whether or not it has been clicked, or if it will be clicked, or if it's currently being clicked. It's basically just a button. It's either on and off, and you just click it, and that's it. All right, it doesn't keep track of anything. It is a stateless button. Okay, so I'm going to come over here to my toolbox, and I'm going to find the button control. The default button here in Windows programming with C# is a stateless button. And I'm just going to go ahead and run this. Now we see our form here, and we have our button, and that's it. I'm just clicking it. It's not doing anything currently, but we're clicking it. It's a button. All right. So a couple quick properties that are fairly important. The first is the name, like always. I'm just going to call it btn click me, because I don't have a better name for it at this point. And down here, the text is going to say click me. There we go. So now we have a button that says click me. Okay. Now the most important thing a button can do is be clicked. All right. Clicking a button fires off an event called a click event, meaning that you have clicked this button. So what we can do is we can double click on this button to create our click event. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. All right. And we have this btn click me underscore click. Okay, and we'll talk more about the anatomy of event handlers later, but basically anytime you click this button, anything that happens inside this code block will fire off. Any code that's inside here will get run. All right, and so at this point I'm simply going to do btn clickme.text equals I was clicked. We'll just keep that simple, just like that. All right, and I'll go ahead and run it, and we see click me well, you would see I was clicked, but it's not quite big enough. So what we can do is, let me just close this here, and we will say btn clickme.text equals I was clicked, and btn clickme.size equals new size. And you can see here we can pass in a width and a height. My default width for this button is, I have the button clicked here, my default width is 75, so let me set it to 100, and I believe 23 was the height. Alright, yes, 23 was the height. So when we run this, click me, I was clicked. Excellent. See, so we can actually make the button bigger too to compensate for the extra text. Like I said in a previous video, any properties that are here can also be modified programmatically. Okay, that's pretty much the summation of a stateless button. Basically, it has a click event, and you do some code in the click event. There's really not a whole lot else you do with it. Okay, it's a fairly simple control. There are quite a few events we can associate with buttons. We're not going to talk about them right now. We're going to talk about events much later. But we can do things like when it's being clicked and when it's done being clicked and stuff like that. We can run code with this and do all sorts of other things. But we're going to ignore that for now. If you do want a sneak peek, though, to see all the stuff a button can do, you can click this. Once you have the button highlighted, you can click this little lightning bolt. And these are all the things buttons can respond to. All right. We're not going to play around with these right now, but these are all the things buttons can respond to. So it's pretty neat. There's a lot of stuff there. Okay. One more thing I want to talk about with buttons real quick is something called an accept button and a cancel button. All right, you've all probably been in this situation where you're on a website or using some program and you're typing something into a text box and then you hit the enter key and a button gets pressed, either the submit button or something, and you progress, and it's kind of intuitive second nature. You almost never notice it until you're using a web page or a form where you type all this stuff out, you hit the enter key and nothing happens, and you're like, oh man, I've actually got to put my hand on the mouse and move it to the button and click it. What a pain, right? Well, when you hit the enter key and the form just does something, that's called an accept button, and we can create an accept button. All right. So if I click on form 1 here, all right, and that highlights my form, I can look for the property called the accept button right here, accept button. And when I click this little drop down, I will get I will get a list of all of the buttons on this form. Now, obviously, there's only one button right now, and it's BTN Click Me. So I will go ahead and select that. Excellent. Now, when I run it, if I have this form focus, which I do, if I hit the enter key, it's going to simulate a button click to that button. Just like that. I didn't click the button, I hit the enter key. I was clicked. Okay? That is the accept button for the form. So if I had a whole bunch of text fields, like say it was an online form and people are filling a bunch of stuff out, when they're done, they can just hit the enter key and I can tell it, hey, if someone hits the enter key, click the submit button. All right, that way they don't have to move the mouse down to the submit button and click it. So it's a matter of convenience, and it's really neat. Most people don't notice when you have it, but they do notice when you don't have it. So it's kind of one of those things you really want to have. Now on top of that, we have something called the cancel button. And to illustrate that, I'm going to add another button. All right, and I'll put it down here, and I will name the button BTN Cancel, and I will make it say cancel, and if someone clicks it, we'll say btn cancel dot text equals, we'll just say operation canceled. Of course, that's going to be too big for the initial button, so we're also going to do btn cancel dot size equals new size, and we'll pass in, we'll say 110. I'm just guessing, that's just off the top of my head. We'll see what happens. All right, now I'll run it just to make sure this button works. I'll click the cancel button. It says operation canceled. Fantastic. So we know it works. So I'm going to re-highlight my form, and I'm going to look for the cancel button property. And when I click it, you can see I get two buttons now in this dropdown because there's 2 buttons on the form. But my BTN cancel is the one I want when I hit the cancel on a form. All right, so we can go ahead and run this now, and I'm going to hit play. And now, I'm not going to click on anything, but I am going to hit the escape button. And you'll see the operation was canceled. So now I have it, so if I hit enter, I get the button click, the click me button fires off. If I hit the escape button, the click event of the button, or cancel button fires off. So yeah, so we have a little bit of power there. They're very useful features, things, like I said, people won't notice when they're there, but they will notice when they're not, and it's a very useful thing to have. So that's going to conclude my video on stateless buttons. In the very next video, we're going to talk about buttons that have state.